Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haramai, and welcome to this week's episode of the Niche Case Variety Show. We are from the niche-case.com and we deliver major Aotearoa sporting kōrero. Sometimes we deliver it in podcast format, which is what you're here listening and watching. Other times we are writing about Aotearoa sport for our website, the niche-case.com. Lots of football yarns are there right now. National League content, Flying Kiwis content. I've just done a Kiwi-NRL juniors yarn about the juniors who won or competed in finals in Australia, Queensland and New South Wales. Lots of lads from Aotearoa in those finals, as well as plenty of cricket content, Stephen Adams basketball content, Breakers yarn, still incoming wildcard.
Still incoming. Maybe later in the week. It's a good time for that because they just had a ballistic couple wins on the weekend.
Yes. Aotearoa Breakers basketball is officially fun again. Shout out to them. Shout out to the Breakers. Did enjoy watching those games over the weekend. Prior to this, we have recorded a Patreon podcast. Big up the Patreon whānau. It is the best way to support the Niche Case straight up the guts. We discuss some New Zealand football stylistic elements in tune with the World Cup and just the assessing some Kiwi football with the World Cup in mind, as well as wrapping up the Blackcaps ODI series, which is ongoing against India. Won the first game, second game washed out, third and final game coming up mid-week. Patreon is the best way to support us. Patreon.com/our niche case. And of course, if you are a member of the Patreon whānau, that podcast is there for you as well. And every Monday and Friday, we also deliver an email dispatch via Substack, the nichecase.substack.com, where we also serve up extra content, extra yarns, all the links to the website, all the podcast information is part of that email dispatch. And we Monday emails are usually wrapping up the weekend sporting action, and then Friday just throwing up any bits and pieces, any news, any insights we've been pondering. We just chuck as much Aotearoa sporting content as we can fit in those email dispatches every Monday and Friday evening. The nichecase.substack.com. Sign up with your email address, and then it's just Niche Case content to your email inbox on a Monday and Friday evening. Wildcard, before we get to mindfulness, I did do the intro before I did the warm-up kōrero. So I do want to just chuck out this question to you because I have been thinking about it, and I am aware that I'm putting you on the spot, so I do appreciate your immense brain power in conjuring up some names for me. But who are your favorite low-key World Cup players? Like, obviously, there are the big donnies. We all know who the big donnies of the World Cup are. Trendiest players, the most famous names, the legends. Who's just a low-key favorite player that you love watching at this World Cup?
Low-key favorite player. I mean, because I haven't been able to watch as much as I would like of it because it's on at ridiculous hours. I think the automatic response is to just trend towards the Manchester United players, but there is a dude who is a United player, but he's out on loan at the moment, called Hannibal Mejri from I think he plays for Tunisia. And he's recognizable because he's got like the sideshow bob haircut, with long curls and whatnot. And he's a player I've watched a little bit for the United Academy. He's quite an exciting up and coming like creative midfielder, but also because he's the best player in like under 21 level, he just gets hacked. Like people just chop him down all the time, and he gets a lot of yellow cards for reacting. He's a bit of a hothead, which is context to say there's a funny clip going around of when Tunisia played against Australia. And old mate Mitch Duke goes down injured in a challenge at one point, and he's sort of like lying on the ground. The ball rolls over to the sideline where Hannibal's like a sub warming up, picks up the ball, throws it and hits Duke on the head with it. Duke turns around and screams at him, and then the ref gets involved, and then they end up shaking hands and everything's all good. But I thought that was quite funny.
I actually saw that as well.
You did see that. Well, there you go. That's fella is Manchester United Academy up and comer, and Mitch Duke is Mitch Duke, and it was funny.
What's the Tunisian chap's name again?
Hannibal Mejbri.
Hannibal Mejbri. Shout out to him. Big it up to you, bro. Mindfulness.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
mindfulness.
I don't know. The Hannibal name just has a lot of I think I know
connotations.
deep in the history it was an all good-ish name, but right now it's just got some negative connotations. So I'm not sure if you're going to draw any mindfulness from Hannibal, but what do you got?
Yeah, it's either Hannibal, the ancient war general who I think his thing is that he led like a famous some famous victory against like the Spartans or something. I don't know. Or it's Hannibal Lecter, the fictional but cannibal fella. So either way, both memorable characters. I've got Shunru Suzuki, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Mindfulness here. On there's a fella there on the old YouTube, happy looking chap, who said it is when your practice, talking about like mindfulness practice here, is when your practice is rather greedy that you become discouraged with it. So you should be grateful that you have a sign or a warning signal to show you the weak point in your practice.
When your practice becomes greedy, is that like you become attached to your practice, you need to do more?
Yeah, I think so. Attached to it and attached to the outcomes, like getting greedy, like you're trying to accomplish something really specific, whereas you sort of know it's way more about the process than it is about the outcome. The outcome will take care of itself if you can stay in the moment and all these kind of things and clear your head and not be attached to your feelings and those and that whatnot. I think the greediness here comes in trying to be like, because I do this, I'm better than you. Because I do this, I am superior. I have achieved this. I've achieved that. Where actually, the more you start thinking that way, the less you're actually going to achieve it all because you're not actually practicing. And if you can catch yourself feeling that way, then you've caught yourself at one of those warning signs, haven't you? Where it's being like, oh wait, yeah, whoops, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Sweep that one away and carry on.
I have found it easier to, like, through awareness and gratitude of the full experience of being a human, which means a shitload of negative thoughts, a shitload, like, experiencing the darkness of humanity, and just awareness of that, I do think is part of the greediness as well. Because if you do get too deep into the mindfulness and spirituality, you can be like, well, this is like, I shouldn't have any darkness.
Yeah, right.
I shouldn't have any negative feelings or negative emotions, where right now I feel pretty good, where I feel grateful for the darkness. I feel grateful for the negativity, because as a human, to experience the full range of human feelings and emotions is pretty cool. Like, I don't know, I just feel like that's part of our mission here on Earth. But I digress, Wildcard, because we have Aotearoa sporting topics to discuss. Your leading banger of a take. Dip into that chili bin. It's almost time, Wildcard. Summer's almost here. You can dip into your chili bin. Find a nice cold take for us.
Could have fooled me that summer's on its way. Bloody record rains, but whatever. I'm gonna dip in the chili bin and grab out a cold brewski with, which suggests that I've been following Costa Rica at this World Cup, right? Because they're the team that beat the All Whites, and in another reality, another plane of existence, it would have been us there instead of them. So I've tried to keep a close eye on what Costa Rica have done, and hot take, kind of don't think the All Whites would have done any better than what Costa Rica have done there. Probably actually a fair bit worse. Costa Rica's first game was a 7-0 fustigation at the hands of Spain, in which they had 0 shots, 0 corners. Spain took 0 goal kicks. Costa Rica had less than 20% possession. I don't think I've ever seen a game at like a high level before with stats like that. That's outrageous. Now the All Whites, the A-Dubs, they have a better midfield, I think, than Costa Rica, a bit more youthful energy. I do think that maybe wouldn't have been quite so bad against Spain, a bit of Joe Bell, bit of Marco Stamenic pressure there, maybe hold them to 4 or 5 goals instead, although I find it hard to see a team that failed to score in any of their last 5 games, and none of those games were against a team anywhere near the elite caliber of Spain. I find it hard to see them doing anything on attack against them. Also, don't really see the All Whites being able to rally the way that Costa Rica then did to beat Japan 1-0 in their second game. And I mean, even still, Costa Rica got to play Germany in their last match, and Germany are going to have to win that game in order to make the next round. Probably going to want to win by as many goals as possible to shake their goal difference, something similar to Spain. So that one could well end up 7-0 as well. But I'd rather lose 7-0 at the World Cup than not make the World Cup. And I just don't really think the All Whites, the way that they were trucking leading into that tournament, I don't see them doing any better than what Costa Rica did. They might have snuck a couple fewer goals against Spain, probably still would have been a hefty loss. Don't really think they would have done what they did against Japan. As much as Schadenfreude, I guess you call it, of watching them get thrashed was funny, the fact they then bounced back to win probably says a fair bit about why Costa Rica qualified for the World Cup and why the All Whites didn't, and just having that experience, having that know-how. Been to tournaments before, sadly, was just a weakness of the All Whites at this stage in their thing. But hey, there's always 2026, and maybe it'll be different that time.
I reckon the All Whites need some Tadeo version of the pure vibe, the pure spirit, pure life that Costa Rica,
Pura vida moniker. I don't know what that would be, but we'll work on that between now and 2026. We'll sort something out.
Yeah, pure mana or something like that. Some sort of catchphrase for All Whites football, because Costa Rica, what was their one again?
Pura vida.
Pura vida.
It's not just football. It's like Costa Rica, their entire country lives by that phrase.
Is that just
it's the Hakuna Matata of Costa Rica, basically? It just means pure living.
I think we just have chur.
Yeah, nah.
Just sweet. It's just sweet. It's just chur. We don't need a catchphrase.
It's kind of the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. We don't need a catchphrase, though. We're just sweet. We're just chur. It's all good.
We love it rather than,
My banger take here, wildcard. I'm going sizzling. I'm on the barbecue. And sometimes on that barbecue wildcard, the old meat can get lost in the sauce. You can get a bit too caught up in in the condiments. You can get a bit too caught up in all the rubs, all the marinades. All you need is some meat, salt, and pepper. Nothing else. Not for this barbecue. And these core ingredients are just Tom Latham and Kane Williamson. So it does feel like we get lost in the Blackcaps batting sauce. Glenn Phillips, funkiest cricketer in the world, most exciting cricketer in the world. Finn Allen, best slugger. Devon Conway, legendary start to his career. Daryl Mitchell just does everything. He's the man. Martin Guptill was the man. Now he's out. Oh my God, Martin Guptill. Shout out to Martin Guptill, because when that T20 World Cup squad was announced, they went to Avondale College, and they had a little show and parade with Martin Guptill, and it was big man Marty Guptill heading off to the T20 World Cup. How cool is it being at Avondale College? Yeah, well,
he hasn't played a game since.
Unlucky else. That is to say that we do get lost in the sauce quite a lot, and especially the pizzazz of T20 cricket and how cool that is. But let's just keep it simple. Kane Williamson and Tom Latham are the 2 best batters from Aotearoa right now. Holistically. Every format, statistically, the eye test, the vibe check, Latham and Williamson are 2 of 2 batting legends from Aotearoa, and I believe they are the 2 best batters from Aotearoa right now, and I don't think we should ever overlook that. And I'm throwing this up because in my mind, I'm thinking, there's a lot of lads being shuffled out the door. Case in point, Marty Guptill. There's also some stuff happening with the bowling, we lost Trent Bolt. That was unlucky. But if you got Latham and Williamson in Test and ODI cricket, I think the Blackcaps are going to be all right. And I'm hanging my hat on that. I'm hanging my hat on Latham and Williamson being world-class batters over a long period of time and taking Aotearoa cricket forth into the unknown. It is the unknown. We are entering the unknown. So happy to have them leading this, me and us on this journey. You got a stat for us, Wildcard?
I do. And it's also a Blackcaps stat. Just a thought I had there listening to that is how it's kind of funny how Kane Williamson in all three formats just bats at 3 and kind of bats the same way. Whereas Latham doesn't play T20s, but he bats as a gritty test opener and then like a flashing runner ball plus number 5, like dashing number 5 in ODIs, where he's also wicketkeeper. It's like one dude is the same no matter where you go, and the other dude is drastically different from one format to the next. I
got to push back on that because you're pigeonholing old Latham a little bit. Like I reckon he's so good at batting, he does the role. He doesn't have a style. He just applies what he needs to apply to the situation, to the format. And I think that kind of goes overlooked about Tom Latham because many folks would know coming up through the grades, Latham was a big Donny, and anytime he goes back to domestic cricket, he is the big Donny, and he's a really good batter who just applies his skill set applicably, which doesn't make sense. Let's carry on.
That makes sense. Like rather than there being 2 different Tom Lathams, there's just one holistic Tom Latham. Yeah, that adds up. There's also one holistic Tim Southee in a way. Tim Southee did something pretty special the other day. He took his 200th ODI wicket, and like that's not actually the special bit I'm talking about, but that's pretty special in itself. Only Dan Vittori, Kyle Mills, Chris Harris, Chris Cairns had previously done that for the Blackcaps. Tim Southee also has 347 test wickets. That is 3rd all time behind Sir Richard Hadlee and Daniel Vittori. Vittori keeping pace with them there to this point, but one thing Vittori never did is he never took 100 T20 wickets as well. And as should be common knowledge at this point, Tim Southee has the most T20 international wickets of any player in history. 134 of the bad boys. There's actually only 5 blokes in history who've even made to triple figures in T20s with wickets. Shakib Al Hassan is 2nd, then Rashid Khan. If Sodhi is 4th. Lasith Malinga is the other one. There's only 18 men in history who have 300 test wickets and 200 ODI wickets. Only Tim Southee is in both of those clubs. Only Tim Southee has 300 test wickets, 200 ODI wickets, 100 T20 wickets. He's the only member of the 300, 200, 100 club in world cricket. No one else has ever done that. Tim Southee, 1 of 1.
Tim Southee, best bowler ever.
That's it.
My stat here, Wildcard, is about Jess McFadyen, the Wellington wicketkeeper who has been called up to the White Ferns squad. She has been part of White Ferns squads in the past, but she hasn't played. Now she is in the squad to face Bangladesh, and she is the leading candidate, probably. She is the only wicketkeeper in the squad, so she probably is going to be the wicketkeeper in this series. She has played 59 one-day games and 49 T20 games, so we've got a nice large sample size here. One-day cricket, list A cricket, she has a batting average of 36.42, which immediately puts her in the upper echelon of like the best one-day batters in domestic cricket in Aotearoa. There are very few female batters averaging over 30 in domestic cricket in Aotearoa. T20 batting average of 10. So one day batting average of 36.42, T20 batting average of 10. This is interesting because the next major tournament is the T20 World Cup. Izzy Gaze has been, she was the wicketkeeper on the tour to West Indies. She is now in India with the development team from New Zealand. But this is McFadyen's chance to make a case for further development around the White Ferns and possibly entering that T20 World Cup squad. There is nothing about a domestic cricket mahi to suggest that she should be in the T20 World Cup squad, but she has a chance with Gaze over in India at the moment. So just keep an eye on that one. really good domestic one-day batter, but the big opportunity is in T20 cricket with the T20 World Cup early next year. Deep in the Mangroves wildcard. Think you've found a rather large human, probably not wearing shoes, probably wearing camo gear, shooting free throws, or at least practicing.
Well, hopefully practicing. I mean, like, I don't know. Hypothetically, what's the worst thing you could find in the mangroves? Like a dead body or something, probably. I don't know what else would be up there. And
yeah, you can find all, like, realistically, probably some crabs. To be honest, like there's not too much bad shit in the mangroves in Aotearoa. Like with the land of Papatūānuku and Ranganui, you know, it's glorious land. The mangroves are beautiful. There's no dangerous, hazardous beasts in those mangroves, apart from Steven Adams, maybe, because he might be a bit aggro.
Well, yeah, it's not like South Florida where you might come across a crocodile eating a person or something. You know? Yeah, well, in that case, I think I've found the worst thing that's possible to find in the mangroves, which is Steven Adams shooting free throws, because I've looked into this nice and deep. I've written about it in a little bit more, expansion in the latest Kiwi Steve thing. He might be the worst NBA. He might be the worst free throw shooter in the NBA right now. He's hitting them at 27.6% at the moment for this season. There was a stretch of 6 games recently where he actually made 3 of like 22, I think it was. A 4 of 9 effort from the line against the New York Knicks in his most recent game actually somehow improved his record. He was lingering at around 23% prior to that. And that game also included only the second instance this season in which he'd gone to the line for 2 free throws and made both of them. I had to look this up, and it actually wasn't hard to look up, because first you just look at which games did he make 2 free throws in at all? Well, there aren't very many of those. Okay, well, let's have a closer look and see if he made 2 in a row of any of those. Yeah, there was one. There was a game against the Brooklyn Nets a month ago, late October, where he made 2 in a trip and hadn't done it again for a month. Career average is around 55%, which, so like, he's never been good, but I mean, this is twice as bad as his usual badness, what he's doing this season. The worst all time for a player who's taken a minimum of 200 free throws in an 82-game season was Ben Wallace, 2000-2001 season, 33.3%. Adams has made 16 of 58 right now through the first 20 games of the season. He didn't play one of those games, but 20 games into the season, so almost a quarter of the way. He's on pace to beat that. Hopefully that doesn't last. Hopefully he can figure that out some way. But on the flip side, he may be the worst free throw shooter in the NBA. Still the best screen assister. He leads the NBA in screen assists per game, screen assists per 36 minutes, total screen assists, on track for a triple crown there. And he's on track also to repeat the triple crown that he got last season with offensive rebounds, where he also leads in per game. Offensive rebounds per 36 minutes, total offensive rebounds, he leads those. Offensive rebounding percentage as well. In fact, Zach Lowe, old mate, just tweeted recently, I'll just read the tweet out. He said, trivia, Steven Adams leads the league with 19.3% offensive rebounding rate. Only 3 players have cracked 19% over a full season, minimum of 1,000 minutes per this is per Basketball Reference. Moses Malone did it 3 times. Dennis Rodman did it twice. Jason Williams twice. Dennis Rodman's 94-95 figure, 20.8%, is number 1 all time. Steven Adams isn't actually very far off that, 19.3%, judging by the Basketball Reference numbers. A little bit less on the NBA.com numbers, but still leads the league on both counts. So, yeah, I mean, free throw shooting is terrible, but maybe the free throw shooting doesn't matter quite so much compared to the other stuff that he does.
You say 27% free throws.
27.6.
So, like, just to get out of the percentage for folks listening, picture yourself, you're shooting 10 free throws and you make 3 of them. That's
You're not better than Steven Adams.
That's Steven Adams. And also, part of that whole Last Dance stuff was Dennis Rodman being this like legendary rebounding figure who had unusual instincts about rebounding, and he was able to, do the geometry off the hoop to get in the right place. And well, Steven Adams is doing the same shit. Let's just highlight that. Deep in my Mangroves wildcard, following on from the niche cast last week, we did have Penrith Panthers announcing their jersey flag squad for the 2023 season. Confirmation that Francis Manulelua moves from the Papatoetoe Panthers to the Penrith Panthers. We talked about him last week, so we don't need to go deep into that specific channel of the estuary and into the mangroves, but he is in that squad, and I think he's got a fantastic opportunity over there with the Panthers, probably forecasting as a half, I reckon, but we'll stay tuned. Funky comparison. So Manulelua was playing in the midfield for King's College First 15. I think a lot of his junior rugby league has been in the halves. Dimitris Sifakula was playing in the midfield for De La Salle College First 15. Same position as Francis Manulelua, but Sifakula transitioned into a middle forward for Redcliffe Dolphins under 21s this season. So it's just part of the footy crossover. We got league and union. These two dudes are playing a same role. Like even Ali Leotawa, he finished his King's College First 15 career, I think, playing in the same midfield as Francis Manulelua. He's now forecasting as a centre winger, moving up through the grades. So it's a weird one where you got like Sifakula, he's transitioned into a middle forward playing the same position. And then you've got dudes who are like midfield in rugby union. You're probably thinking centre, winger, maybe a number 6 in rugby league. That's just some weird rugby league freaky notes, like real deep cut notes there. Penrith Panthers, jersey flag squad, along with Francis Manulelua. They have Eli Tuia, who was in the squad last year. He's a Randwick junior. The Panthers have also signed Leighton Finau, Maris Jr. in Auckland, from the Warriors. So this continues the Panthers signing players from the Warriors. Like Manulelua had spent time in the Future Warriors program. Obviously, we know nothing about the contracts for these youngsters. So who knows if he was directly signed from the Warriors or if that contract had lapsed and then he just was a free agent. But the Jersey Flag players, Francis Manulelua, Leighton Finau, and also Kyson Kingi, who did play for the Panthers SG Ball and Jersey Flag last year from Kerikeri. He has also spent time in the Warriors system. Not to mention William Whakatomafe, who is now with the Roosters, Dayon Amatuanai, who has graduated to New South Wales Cup and is training with the Panthers NRL squad, and Preston Ricky from the same area as James Fisher-Harris. They were all signed by the Panthers from the Warriors. Also in this Panthers flag squad, you've got a dude by the name of Tane Fangupu, who is from Auckland. To the best of my knowledge, he went to St. Paul's College, which is a rugby league school in Auckland. But there is also this emerging trend that I love of young men leaving Auckland to go study at university, specifically Otago University, and then playing rugby league in Otago and getting scouted from those systems. So Tane Fungupu was playing for South Island under-20s while he was at university in Otago, and then he is in the Penrith Panthers Jersey Flag squad. This season, like the past season, there was Tonga Nau, who is from Auckland. I think he went to Western Springs College as well as Mount Albert Grammar School. Then he moved down to play to, I don't know if he was actually studying in Otago, but he did move down to Otago and he started playing for the for the Otago rugby league team. I'm not a huge fan of the Otago Whalers name, so we'll just go with the Otago men's rugby league team, who performed really well in the NZRL competition. Then he moved to Melbourne, where he's loosely in the Melbourne Storm system. So I'm enjoying this variety of pipelines from Aotearoa where players are being signed from the National Under-20s competition, and they also being signed from Otago Rugby League, South Island Rugby League, which is excellent. And it goes to show there's a lot of, the Panthers are a team who just sign players from other NRL clubs from Aotearoa. There are other NRL clubs who invest a lot into their recruitment and their scouting and get players. They move from Auckland to Australia, they get into schools and whatnot. But also, you might just get scouted from playing rugby league in Otago if you're good enough. And that variety in the pipelines is fantastic. And also, I enjoy the Panthers variety in their Kiwi-NRL recruitment. Obviously, quite Warriors-centric, but they do have some other funky recruitment moves as well. Quick question here, Wildcard. Couple of big losses for the Wellington Phoenix women. What is something for us to hold on to as far as positive energy, hope, and optimism goes for this team?
Well, I do think this is a team that is mostly still pretty young. Not as young as they were last year. They've got more experience than they had then, but still very young in terms of a professional setup. And that can just take some time. And I fully expect them to be a team similar to last season, where after the first few weeks, you're going to start to see steady improvements just along the way from week to week. It's not necessarily going to be there from week one, but hopefully by the end of the season, it should be. And I don't expect them to make the semi-finals or anything. I never did, but if they could not finish last, that'd be cool. If they can be a little bit more competitive. I think maybe the two teams they've played as well have been very good teams. I mean, Melbourne City, I expect to be around the finals contention, and Western United, at least at the moment, certainly while they've got, 3 or 4 American imports in there, pretty experienced team themselves, even though they're an expansion side. Like, they've gone the opposite direction of the Phoenix, who were an expansion team, signed a bunch of young players. Western United went the opposite way. Like, they signed the best quality, most experienced players we can. Saw what that looks like. When that was a close game up until about 70 minutes as well. Like, it was still 1-1 at that point, and then they just got blown out late. So, chuck on top of that they seem to just be like a good group of girls who have a great energy, and everyone enjoys that they're playing together, and good vibes around the team. People understand that it's the only professional club in the country, so there's good vibes from that as well. There's plenty to hang your head on there. It's just it might take a little while for that to show through in terms of on the field results is all. Question back in the other direction. We're into the Ford Trophy now. We've had the Plunket Shield, first half of the Plunket Shield. We're into the Ford Trophy section of the domestic cricket season. Give me 3 men's cricketers who you're paying a very close attention to at the moment, who you're going to be keeping a close eye upon across this Ford Trophy stuff.
Henry Shipley is a massive one. The Canterbury all-rounder. He just takes wickets. He's hit a 6 in every game this summer, which is quite impressive given we've played a lot of Plunket Shield and a bit of Ford Trophy. He's just got something about him. Like, he's a tall seamer, but he's got a bit of nip. He's got a bit of seam, and he really loves to bat. And there's obvious comparisons to Kyle Jamieson, and I'm curious. Like, I had Henry Shipley as a fascinating character ahead of the summer. Then he started hitting 6s every game, and he started taking wickets to get this summer underway. So watch out for Henry Shipley with Canterbury. The other two are quite obvious. Like, all of this is obvious given the Plunket Shield All-Stars and Ford Trophy notes that we've shared on the website this week. Dane Cleaver and Tom Blundell. Like, Dane Cleaver's had a resurgence in the white ball stuff. Wicketkeeper for Central. Very aggressive batter at the top of the order for Central. Also a fantastic batter in all formats. But he is playing a very aggressive role for Central, which when you are batting alongside the low-key underground king, Brad Shamulian, Will Young, Latudu Taylor, old Cleaver's got a license. Tom Bruce is in that lineup. It's a bit ridiculous, but old Cleaver's going to have a jolly old time cracking boundaries at the top of the order. And Tom Blundell, the MVP, I think a lot of people pigeonhole Tom Blundell as well. Like, just because he's a test wicketkeeper doesn't mean he loves to hit boundaries. Anyone who has seen the clips that we put up of his batting highlights, the dude plays strokes. He's got a flourish of the bat with every boundary he hits, and he is a very entertaining batter to watch. And I'm curious about his MVP status in that Wellington team because they're not scoring many runs elsewhere, and he's also in fantastic form. But he's right there as a wicketkeeper with Dane Cleaver. So those two and old Henry Shipley. Also, shout out Dean Foxcroft. He's got a fantastic one-day record. Like a real bonkers one-day record for Otago. And Central, he started with Central. But transitioning from Plunkett Shield to Ford Trophy, I reckon Dean Foxcroft is someone to watch out for. Just already what he's done in one-day cricket prior to his pandemic exile. Musical Jam Wildcard. I want to shout out some our lounge page, theniche-case.com/loungin, LOUNGIN, loungin. 5 Kiwi music videos. Voom featuring Phaser Days Magic. Has and Milo. Has Beats and Milo. They've got a new song 3. They've also got a new project coming out. Olivia Fo'ai. She's got a new song Sunlight, which is a beautiful jam. Avia, You Don't Get It. And Foley, Smooth It Over. The last two are like poppy jams. Has and Milo's a, cool loopy R&B type of vibe. And you got a bit of Phaser Days in there as well. Your musical jam, Walker?
Did like that Boom and Phaser Days song as well, and I don't know that I've all over the new Phaser Days stuff and the previous Phaser Days stuff, but don't know that much about Boom. But apparently, I am assured there's a deep back catalog there, so I'm gonna have to check out the old the archives there for that fella. But on top of that, I mean, new Wise Blight album, fantastic, dreamy, sultry, great sort of. I don't know. It sounds just like the last album. There's excellent stuff. Like and Poe's got a new album, bit more of a southern rocky style to the usual blues-esque stuff. Outstanding guitar tones on that. And there's a new Neil Young album as well, which I'll have a look at because he's one of the very few of the old boomer writers who I still feel like is worth checking in on whenever they do something. He's one of the few who hasn't developed into a grumpy old bastard. So I do like me some Neil Young, and I'll have a look at that just in case it's one of the very good ones. He's a relentlessly creative dude, which means some stuff sucks and some stuff is great. Little bit of a toss of the coin. We'll see which one this is.
Also got to big up the man's Alan the Chemist. The Alchemist. He's got a trio of songs with Mike and Wiki, which doesn't get any better. Like, just doesn't get any better musically in the hip-hop sphere than Alchemist producing tracks for Mike and Wiki, both of whom are from New York and very much part of the funky hip-hop from New York these days. That is the Niche Cage Variety Show. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode of the Niche Cast. Big it up to yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Cha-cha.